It is my pleasure to introduce Mr. Bhaskar Natarajan. He is associated with the Alliance for Energy Efficient Economy as a senior fellow. He holds an experience of over 25 years in clean energy and sustainable development, managed programs for global donor agencies, and collaborated with ministries of power and environment. Mr. Natarajan will present a talk on advancing energy efficiency in the power sector. So let's welcome Mr. Natarajan.
Good afternoon and thank you everyone. Thank the organizers for giving AEEE this opportunity to share some of my thoughts on this very important subject of advancing energy efficiency in the power sector. We had a very good overview from the earlier speaker who has indicated where we are moving, which direction we are moving. I'm going to be speaking about what is going to be happening to the consumer with all these multitude of choices available, and in terms of ensuring that the consumer gets all this at a price that is not enormously exorbitant at some point of time in the future. But before that, I'll just take a minute to say that the Alliance for an Energy Efficient Economy is an industry-led, not-for-profit established about 15 years ago, working with various stakeholders in the private sector, the government sector, and civil society organizations to advance energy efficiency and to foster a culture of energy efficiency across all stakeholders, including consumers in the country. Coming to the power sector, there are 3 or 4 key issues that I think we need to understand. We have just heard how the power sector is moving forward, how the consumption and generation are likely to come closer to each other, and how prices will need to reflect the cost of supply. All these involve the requirement of an enormous amount of metering, back-end software, and related aspects which need to perform at 100% reliability and availability levels. And this is where I would want to mention that all these developments are happening, but where is it that the consumer comes in? The consumer comes in terms of 2 ways. One, the consumer wants consumption at a point in time when he wants it and at an affordable price. We are not saying that it should be very cheap or very expensive. Also, the consumer must know exactly how much he is consuming, at what point in time, and where is the power coming from if you are being charged a premium for clean energy. As we are aware, a couple of states have already given incentives for consumers to procure green power. How these are being ensured that the customer gets what he pays for is still something of a question mark. The second point is that we have probably installed, I don't recall the last number, 50 lakh plus smart meters. They have been generating tons and tons of data on a 15-minute basis, on an hourly basis, and I have not seen any kind of analysis at the DISCOM level that says, what am I collecting all this data for that I have paid for? I have installed expensive meters, I have installed expensive back-end systems, but what am I doing with it? In many DISCOMs, I am told they are not even downloading the data, where automatic downloading opportunities don't exist. Now, here is where I want to come and say, you have installed a meter at the consumer's premise. The utility has a contract with the customer and says, I will give you this at this price, you will do the following. Now, you have installed the meter, it is my consumption, and I am not able to see what I am consuming. A few discoms have got small apps that are in place, but there is still a long way to go as far as giving information to the customer is concerned. The bigger issue that I see is to see how you are going to resolve these issues of tariffs and availability of power when you are ensuring that you will charge peak time tariffs and off-peak tariffs. This is the first part of my talk. The second part that I want to mention is on the efficiency side. The Bureau of Energy Efficiency has included the PAT program for all thermal power stations beyond a certain capacity. These thermal power stations are expected to perform efficiently after doing energy audits and report information to the Bureau of Energy Efficiency. The Bureau of Energy Efficiency has collected all this information, but it is not very clear as to what has happened with all this information because the assessment of these PAT programs has taken more than 3 to 4 years. The PAT program of 5-6 years back is still to be announced in terms of results. So if power stations are taking the efforts, the Bureau is supposed to ensure efficiency in operation. What are we doing to ensure that the laws that you have passed are followed by the power station? They are following or not, we still don't know. You've got a penalty, you've got energy saving certificates. The prices for these certificates, again, are a separate issue. We won't go into it. The next point that I do want to highlight is the Bureau of Energy Efficiency has also got rules for discoms for submitting reports at feeder level and all these kind of data. You just go through any one of these documents. It has pages of information. Is anything happening with all this information? Is any feedback going by the fellow who made the rules saying this is what it is? The whole challenge here I see is that we are moving towards a system where we are generating a whole lot of information, but we are doing very little in terms of analyzing what to do with that information and give a feedback to the regulator, the customer, saying all this cost that I have incurred, hundreds of crores of rupees, is it adding value to you, the customer? The last point I would make at this stage and then perhaps come back later is this whole subject of electric vehicles and installation of charging points. There is a predominant issue saying I may not get the charge, the kilometers that they are promising, and if I take my vehicles out, I will have a charging issue. Now we are installing thousands of charging points all over the country. We want to install all of them across the highways and so on and so forth. I am not sure that these investments are actually getting the kind of results because at least more than 50 to 60% of these chargers are installed by PSUs, government-funded institutions. At least in Delhi, in South Delhi, when I have been driving all over the place from morning 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., more than 60-70% of the public charging stations are empty. I don't know who is making money from these charging stations if they have installed them. I believe the same situation will come with the high connected loads of 100 kilowatts plus direct, the DC charging stations, the fast charging stations. The same issue is likely to come up. I'm not sure people are going to have an hour or half an hour to stop and charge and so on. So let me stop here and only conclude by saying we are generating a whole lot of data. We are not really analyzing all that through technology. And we need to give feedback to ultimate customer saying, what have I invested all this for? I'll stop here. Happy to come back and take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Natarajan, for your excellent talk on advancing energy efficiency in the power sector. If you have any questions for our panelists, kindly put them in the Q&A box.